Okay. We're live. Hey, guys, it's Old Man G here, back again, with another live video, actually, another live stream. I don't know what segment we call this. Latest Manchester United news, Manchester United update. I'm not entirely sure. Hopefully, everyone can hear me, and hopefully, people can see me. And this stream will go okay. We're having a few technical issues with switching to different computers, so I'm just gonna hopefully see what works best. For things going forward. So it's in like so basically, if you use the channel, before I go into the news, which is when there's a lot of news to cover regarding United, regarding the Premier League season, regarding the Champions League, and so on. If you're new to the channel, please like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter, United X, and smash the notification button. The latest Manchester United news. Sorry, apologies. We should have been at 7 p.m. We weren't, and we ended up being having pushed it up half an hour earlier because I had a few things I need to sort out. We're live anyway, so here we go. So anyway, let's crack into the show. Hopefully, it shouldn't be too long, maybe about half an hour or so, depending on how many people get involved. But this is the big news here, and I think I want to really cover this. Raymond, man, shout out to you, man. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for stopping by. This is the news that I basically wanted to cover. There's a few key topics, actually. The first one is about Ed Woodward and what this means regarding Manchester United transfers. So this has basically been shown on the BBC, and basically it's titled "Ed Woodward, Manchester United chief says big money for transfer talk ignores financial reality." So let's just go through the article and just how important it is. So Manchester United Executive Vice Chairman Ed Woodward says speculation about transfers for hundreds of millions of pounds this summer is ignoring the realities that face the sport because of the coronavirus pandemic. United were linked with a 200 million move for Tottenham striker Harry Kane, which I still think is nonsense. And obviously the 130 million signing of Jadon Sancho. And then Edward was basically in quotes saying, "Nobody should be under any illusions about the scale of challenge facing everyone in football, and it may not be business as usual for any clubs, including ourselves, in the transfer market this summer," Woodward said in the United Forums on Friday, so just yesterday gone. "As ever, our priority is the success of the team, but we need visibility of the impact across the whole industry, including timings of the transfer window and the wider financial picture before we can talk about a return to normality." It then goes on to say, the article then goes on to talk about what he says, "Well, we will continue looking for more ways of supporting those in need for as long as the pandemic continues," said Woodward. And obviously, it goes on to talk about commercial viability. "So everyone is grappling with the economic realities of the pandemic. We are no different. The longer the crisis continues, the greater impact will be for every club, including ourselves. But it's important to acknowledge the part played by our successful business in allowing us to fulfill our social responsibilities. We have always believed that our commercial model gives us greater resilience than most clubs. We are eager to see the team return to the field as soon as we are advised it's safe to do so. And while it may be that the games need to be played behind closed doors, in the short term, we recognize football will not be fully back. Norms of sports are once again in attendance." So a big mouthful, which I apologize for, but it's important because Ed Woodward clearly, almost, there's been a lot of basically just transfer talk over the last couple of days, partly because newspapers. I wanted to address this because even though I've been posting quite a few videos on my channel just regarding transfer talk and transfer speak, etc., there's been a lot of videos from various channels saying, "Oh, Sancho is done, we're in for Partey, we're in for all these different sort of players." And the reality is that Ed Woodward, clearly, who's obviously in charge of our finances, is saying, "Guys, chill," basically. The Harry Kane rumor I always thought was balls anyway. But the fact that Ed Woodward literally is saying, "Right, guys, there's a very good chance that we're not going to be spending millions upon millions of pounds on players. We're not, because of the nature of the financial crisis that we're in." Now, you can take this a few ways. Okay, you can take this as a kind of like a Ed Woodward basically making a statement saying Manchester United as a football club will not be held to ransom. I.e., a lot over the last couple of seasons, Manchester United have constantly been taken to ransom by clubs. I mean, you look at, for example, Leicester City with Harry Maguire, and every English town, it's like, 80 million, 50 million. We spent a lot of money on players and been bartered for because we've been so desperate. Now, Ed Woodward is sort of saying, listen, we want to play this safe. We don't want to sort of spend hundreds of millions of pounds when we don't have to. And that's reasonable from a business point of view. Why should Ed Woodward spend hundreds of millions of pounds, on players? He shouldn't have to. Manchester United shouldn't have to if there's circumstances whereby other teams around Europe have financial issues, have to let players go. As he said almost in the piece, we want to just see how this whole thing works. We want to see what comes available, because you might find a situation where there are players that become available on the market that are very, very cheap, that become available just merely because of their availability. And that's the thing with seeing how this process, this whole coronavirus pandemic sort of thing works out. Manchester United shouldn't be under any risk to go. Now, the other way of looking at it is that, is this Manchester United is this Ed Woodward basically saying, like, lowering Manchester United fans' expectations, like saying, right, guys, there's a very good chance, especially we don't know when the transfer window is going to start. Is there even going to be a transfer window? There's a very good chance that we're not going to sign Sancho this transfer window. Cool it, because we have got no idea whether there's going to be a transfer window, how much I'm going to pay, and the nature of the Champions League. Because, and we'll talk about it later, the fact of the matter is that I still believe that Jadon Sancho coming to Manchester United is contingent on Manchester United getting Champions League football. And as we'll discuss later with the recent discussion with UEFA and what that means, there's a very good chance that Manchester United may not get Champions League football next season. No fault of their own, but just with the way that UEFA are deciding things. So yeah, I don't know where to go with this one, And at the end of the day, as everyone says, the reality is that what's going on in the world has much more importance than what's going on in football, and it kind of also exposes the amount of money and too much money there is in the game. Raymond says, I agree with Woodward. Global economic is going down, so does football. Spend a big money on rebuilding the economy. Well, exactly, So, but I mean, it's even just the fact that we cuss the Glazers a lot for their money and stuff like that, but the reality is that Manchester United are in a much more commercially viable situation than most other clubs. And even if football clubs were to resume, will people really actually be able to afford it? So the long-term implications of this pandemic is going to be massive. For so many clubs, and the reality is that if you're like a Dortmund and say, we're not going to budge, we're going to stop at 120 million, we'll go, well, one, you could say, well, you're in a significant financial situation, so you're not in a position to demand 120 million. But also, it could be very well argued that the market gets competitive and will say, well, okay, I won't buy Jadon Sancho for, say, 120 million when, like, a Adama Traore or Partey or other players might be available for much cheaper that can reinforce Manchester United. You spend maybe maximum 60 million on those players, and then I can see what Edward was trying to say, in that the importance of trying to have to maintain some sort of viability in the market. Basically, I wouldn't say viability. I would just say competitiveness. Manchester United, as bad as it sounds, are in a competitive, are in a more advantageous situation than a lot of other clubs. So I see a lot of Arsenal fans, for example, saying, "Oh, we're going to get Partey, we're going to get this, we're going to get that," and I'm like, but how are you going to, so many clubs in this league already are following their staff. Spurs are following their staff. Arsenal following their staff, telling players to get pay cuts. How can you be telling players to get pay cuts and following your staff, and then in a month or two you're like, right, yeah, we're going to spend 60 million on a player? Makes no sense. That can't happen. Of all the teams, the only teams that I could see could spend in the summer are team United, obviously, City because they always have unlimited money, and Chelsea, although City obviously have got fair play. So really, the only teams I can see that can spend semi decently would be Chelsea and United. Every other team in the Premier League is not going to spend at all because you can't follow your staff, and you can't tell your players to take pay cuts and say, yeah, we'll still have millions of pounds. Because people need to bear in mind that the even if football comes back behind closed doors, most likely, you're going to have a scenario where what I'm trying to say, where you're not going to get match day revenue, So, and obviously, when you play a lot of games for a short period of time, the amount of revenue you can get for maximum is not going to be as much. So, whether football returns back or not, clubs are going to lose money, a lot of money, from a lack of match day revenue, from lack of sales, and everything else that comes around it. There is going to be a hit regardless, and money from competitions, etc. So I think what Ed Woodward's saying is reasonable. I think that he's showing us. Sorry, I'm saying this. Essentially, what the plan is for Manchester United going forward, and just the reality that we may not get Jadon Sancho. And I know there's a lot of people on Twitter going like, "Oh my goodness, Glazer's out, all this, this stuff. What's going on? We deserve this." But the reality is that Manchester United have come up quite good in this whole, coronavirus pandemic situation, not flowing their staff. Everyone is on full pay, keeping up spirits, doing really, really well. And it just makes sense for people to just get a bit of perspective. Do I want Jadon Sancho at Manchester United? Absolutely. Do I think that we will get him? I'm 50-50. And I think that for me, rather than sort of saying, speculating and drawing lists, because I think you see a lot of fans, what they're doing is that, I think what Edward was essentially trying to say here is that I'm seeing all these rumored millions and hundreds as if clubs aren't taking into account the reality of the situation. And in that sense, he's right. And the reality is that let's be real. The journalistic media industry is suffering a lot now. People aren't buying papers. It's all online. They're taking a major hit, So the reality is that anything to sell papers, anything to sell books, anything to sell stories to get money. And the reality is that Manchester United sells stories. The reality is that Manchester United are the biggest club in the world. And if you want to make money, if you want to keep afloat, you're going to talk about stories of Manchester United. Simple as that. Raymond Moore says, even when football resumes, fans are still not allowed in stadiums. United can only get TV money, and that will not be enough to sustain the club. United will be fine. United will be from a purely compared to all the other clubs, United, irrespective of whether the season will go on or not, United will actually be fine. I've got no doubt about that. United will actually be fine. The issue is more with how other clubs will be in the Premier League, how they'll be, whether they'll be able to cope, whether they'll be able to do anything, because Manchester United have the cash reserve to continue where they are, and it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, Manchester United don't have infinite money, and so the longer this goes on, the longer this drags on, the less money they have, and the more unreasonable it will be to expect Manchester United, to expect Ed Woodward to say, right, yeah, we're going to spend 200 million on Harry Kane, which is still unreasonable. If I'm honest, what United should do is they should basically, from what I can see, they should basically sign Igalo, or agree with trying to extend the loan to maybe for another 6 months at the end of the year, and see what they can do regarding getting a Sancho, waiving for a Sancho. That's what they should do. Hamek Singh, yo man, how you doing? Hope you're doing well, buddy. Thank you for joining in. It's one of my live shows. I've done them for a while, but I thought I would just get back into it. So yeah, but yeah, let me know what you think, guys, in the comments. Do you think are people peeved with what Ed Woodward said? Do you agree with what he said? Do you think Manchester United should still go out in the summer, given that we still can? Let me know, because I just think, and also just let me know if the audio and video quality of this is fine as well. By the way, so please, I'm still trying to improve with things because I've got a few technical issues. But the reality is that Manchester United are in a better situation, a lot of other Premier League clubs, but that doesn't mean that we should be going out spending tons of money. So that's point number one. Now, I want to go on to this next topic because I think this is also important, and a brief discussion here is, will the Premier League season end? Will the Premier League season end? It's a difficult one, I think. It's a very, very difficult one, and I'll just quickly share, get this in for you guys, and we'll talk about the Champions League in a second, but I will just get this article just up in the background because I think it's very, very important with what we're going to be talking about later on. But do I think that the Premier League season will actually end? I'm not sure, buddy. Hamak Singh says, I love James Maddison, Thomas Partey, Mason can play. I love those two, man. I would love those two, although I'm not sure with Bruno Fernandes we necessarily need Maddison anymore, but I would certainly would agree with Partey. But the thing is that you know, what we just don't know what's going to happen regarding this worldwide pandemic. We just don't. We never know whether there'll be a transfer window, and this comes on to my point about will the Premier League season end, because basically, and this is coming from this is the official UEFA page, and I'm just going to go down to the importance regarding the Premier League. What they basically say in it comes to here is, if a domestic competition is prematurely terminated for legitimate reasons in accordance with the above conditions, UEFA would require the national association concerned to select clubs for the UEFA Club Competition 2021 based on sporting merit in the 2019-2020 domestic competitions. The procedure for electing clubs should be tested on objective, transparent, and non-discriminatory principles. National association and leagues should otherwise have the ability to decide the final position in domestic competition, having regard to split circuit of each competition. The final determination of merger place in the UEFA Club Competition should be confirmed by the relevant competition bodies at domestic level. And then UEFA reserves the right to refuse or violate admission to a club proposed by national and prematurely determined in a particular way, and it goes on. Why I've said that? Why do I think that is important? Obviously, news come out, that the Dutch league has basically been voided. Okay, the Belgian league has been voided already, but the Belgian league had kind of already been finished anyway, and they're just in the playoff systems. They're basically just suspended the playoffs at the top of the league. The big thing is the Eredivisie. The team with Ajax, with AZ Alkmaar, that has been voided now. Where Hakim Ziyech or Van der Beek, that's been voided, gone. And that's the Netherlands. And there's a fear, that the Premier League may be the same. Now, with the Bundesliga, because Germany have handled things a bit better than other nations, there's an idea that the Bundesliga might actually resume, May the 9th even. So Germany might be able to progress. With Britain, and this is the thing with England, I think that if the Bundesliga comes back, there will certainly be a drive to come back. There will be. Hamek Singh, the PL owners only care about money. We all know. I agree, but they will still be redirected by the government. The one interesting thing, and I'll come to this point actually, Georgia B, shout out, man, hope you're doing well. The interesting thing about it is that you're right, Hamek Singh, you're right that that Premier League owners just care about money and want things to resume, but they'll be directed by the government. So they're not going to be able to allow to open or continue things without the government say so. Now, I believe if the Bundesliga comes back, there'll certainly be a pressure for the Premier League to come back just because of the amount of money that be involved. The only thing that I would say is that there is obviously the ideal notion that, there may be the conversation that other countries may say, right, well, do you want to finish your Premier League season outside? So there's a possibility that the Premier League could be played abroad on an island somewhere. Who knows? We don't know, but that is a possibility. Hamek says, I'm still playing FIFA 20 on PS4. Can you get me can you get me off it and recommend good games? Mate, Hamek, stop playing FIFA. I mean, I'm barely playing PES, so as we speak, to be honest. If I recommend a good PS4 game, get Yakuza 0. That's a very, very good game, or something like Uncharted 4 or something like that, So both PES 20 and FIFA 20 are not that great, to be honest. So, but if I have to pick, it's PES anyway. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Do you actually think that the Premier League season will actually end? Right now, for me, it's touch and go. It's 50-50. The scenarios that I see are the Premier League season gets voided or gets voided. It all gets voided, and you just have a sort of a situation where, sorry about that. We just have a sort of situation where we just go by. The thing about this UEFA statement is that when it comes to the Champions League position, which United are involved in, it's not going to be based on the previous season. Okay, it's going to be based on this season, on sporting merit. So, if the Premier League season is voided, then the scenario that you have essentially is you either give Liverpool the title, okay, just because it's it. That nothing changes, that you just have all the positions, you don't award titles, no teams get relegated, and you just have such a situation where on sporting merit you decide the European competitions. So based on sporting merit, it might go by, let's say, average points per game or performance in cup competitions, something like that. Irrespective, Manchester United may be touch and go, maybe 4th or 5th in that position. Probably 5th. The reality of that, though, I'll come on to that. I'll come on to that later. Actually, come on to that later. Raymond Moore, Wuhan, the first city to get the outbreak, is now open in the city. It's last about 3 months. If this is 3 months, UK can take advice. Premier League can still resume playing without fans. Yeah, I mean, like I said, and I think the goal will be for the Premier League to resume for me, because you've got to think about next season as well. And I think that there's a general consensus that the Premier League has to be finished. So I'm getting a lot of suggestion. Has to finish by the end of June. Because I think the UEFA want the Champions League to sort of finish by the end of August, and that's assuming that domestic places or countries allow their teams to travel, etc. But they've set August, and they obviously want to start off with, because you've got to bear in mind, in the middle of July, end of July, August, you also have the playoffs and the competitions, like the qualifying rounds for next season's Champions League and Europa League. So those have to be played. So UEFA have essentially sort of cornered in the domestics, and essentially these competitions have to basically be finished by the end of June. We're in lockdown in the UK for 3 weeks, so we won't basically be out of lockdown until first week, second week in May. Even if they remove the lockdown and say football can play behind closed doors, the players themselves need to get match fit. And that will take, I would say, another 2 or 3 weeks. That's why we have preseason. So it needs to be almost like a mini preseason before they start. So the reality is that if football is going to resume in a professional, competitive capacity, it's not going to be until the beginning of June, early June. And then you have to play all those games. So I don't know. Hamek saying football should be played indoors or isolated areas. It's just, again, how do you schedule that? I think, especially with the lockdown that we've got still ongoing, and also the amount of games. What happens if someone tests positive for corona in that camp? Because that's the thing. The big thing for me is that if a coach or a player tests positive for coronavirus, or comes unwell with it, then you're just back to square one. Rasmus A, man, shout out to you. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Hope you're really doing well. I know you have a few things going on, so I hope you're feeling a lot better. Chow Time, man. Always good to see you, man. Check his channel as well. Got some really good music. And Hamek Singh, nice background and layout, by the way. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm trying to do things a bit differently. I'm in the United dressing room right now. And hopefully this will probably be how we go forward when it comes to like post-match reactions, when football goes back and stuff like that. A share screen, this, that, get everyone involved, commenting and stuff like that. It'll be good. So will the Premier League season end? Answer that question is I'm more leaning towards that it's going to be voided, but we will see. Because I just can't see how the cases we've plateaued and the cases seem to be going on the downwards trend. So if the Premier League season is going to finish, it has to be, we have to essentially remove the lockdown and allow players to train from early May. So essentially the next 2-3 weeks. If that doesn't happen, I can't see how it could be completed, because it has to be completed by the end of June. Going into July, it's going to be tricky. And whether the Champions League or the Europa League competitions end, remains to be seen. So this brings on to my last point. Because I didn't want to do a really, really long stream. But this does bring to my last point, and I'll just get this up. Will United get Champions League? Will United get Champions League? Obviously, for those who tuned in, this is obviously UEFA's official page, and obviously UEFA's statement just regarding what's going on with the coronavirus thing and the issue with domestic competitions, and a bit on UEFA and a bit on Euro 2020, which obviously has been postponed. But essentially what they've said is Champions League spots. So ignore the rankings of the previous season. We're not going to go on that. If you're going to allocate spots, it's going to be based on the domestic leagues, not UEFA themselves, but domestic leagues, to give things based on sporting merit. Now, that's very vague. What is sporting merit? We can't go by the current standings because players have games in hand, for example, like Sheffield United, and the season isn't over. So current standings is a bit tricky. You could go by points per game over a number of games. That's also possible. United would still be in the 5th position, and that would mean that that they'd be 5th. And depending on whether City get their suspension, and they could still be suspended for the Champions League for a year. Spoke off there. United would go into the Champions League. It's still tricky because, again, Sheffield United and other teams have got a game less, and if they played that game, maybe the point average per game would go up. Who knows? That makes sense. I'm going to Manchester after lockdown. We can meet someday. I'm coming to Old Trafford, mate. Man, my ideal is if this channel gets better, make sure you hit a like, post a comment on the video after the video's gone. And for some reason, the stream was taking a while for the video to come in, but please do get involved. Please like the video. It helps the YouTube algorithm to get more people involved. But my goal would be to do fan cams and fan interviews on this channel as well, and just get people's views as well. Like it really would be. That is my goal. It's my aim, and hopefully we can go to it. I just don't want to be the only person giving my short thoughts and opinions on the channel. Hopefully, when I go back to Manchester United, I'll be taking my phone camera and stuff like that and recording people's views and putting them on the channel as well. So that'd be good. Raymond Moore, given the circumstances, I don't think the FA or UEFA will be strict on following the schedule. If they're strict, then the season's pretty much over. I think they will be, because I think that, from the meeting of the Premier League and also the UEFA have had, it seems that it's like this is the plan. Because the impression I get is that UEFA, people want the season to be completed, but more importantly, they don't want it to affect next season. It's already affected next season. I suspect that people in the season until September, because you don't want a scenario where you're now affecting the next season. Okay, because if this goes along, you're going to now start to affect next season. It's going to cause commercial issues, fixture issues, scheduling issues, etc. So this season, whether it's the Champions League or the Premier League, needs to be finished. That's just a big thing, because they don't want it to affect the following season. How that comes to United going to the Champions League, well, like I said, I think it'd be very, very unlikely. Obviously, there's the Europa League as well, which they want to sort of continue, and United are still in the Europa League. It's weird. It's weird because there is a possibility, for example, that you could have a scenario where the season, for example, is voided, and United are fifth, and currently no Champions League unless obviously City get their suspension. But then United would still play in the Europa League, and they win the Europa League, and they get into the Champions League by winning the Europa League. So it's still the possibility. So to be honest, I think the possibility of United being in the Champions League is much higher, than the season continuing. I do. And I do that simply because of the fact that clearly UEFA want the Europa League to finish and Champions League to finish. And they scheduled those tournaments to finish in August. So in August, maybe end of July, August, they'll try and finish that. There's a lot more time for things to happen if you do that than if you do then getting the Premier League season finished, because they want to get the domestic season finished as quick as they can. I'll talk to you about it. Yep, hit me on the email or DM me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, guys, at WeAreUnitedX, Instagram and Twitch as well. Links are in the description. And like the video if you haven't already. I just hope we get Sancho. Mate, I hope we get Sancho as well. But like I said at the start of this video, I think it's going to be very, very, very tricky given the circumstances we're in. But let me know what you think, guys. Like I said, half an hour gone. Thanks to everyone who's tuning in. I will hopefully get back to doing a lot longer streams when one, StreamYard isn't acting up, two, my computer isn't acting up, and three, when we get a lot more news, because I have missed doing this, guys, and I'm thankful there's still people getting involved and watching the content on this channel. Do I think United will get Champions League? Like I said, more likely than the Premier League season continuing, to be honest, because at least we have that Europa League option. You've got, obviously, City suspension. So those two variables weigh in our favour that Manchester United may get Champions League for next season. And if we can act in the market, that can potentially seal us Jadon Sancho. Thanks again for watching, guys. New to the channel, please like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter, UnitedX, and smash that notification button for the latest Manchester news. Have a nice day, guys, and cheers. Over and out.